HOA Karen called 911 after I blocked her shortcut through my private farm. Maybe it was the way she glared at me from across the fence, or how she'd mutter under her breath every time I fired up my tractor. But looking back, I should have known Karen wasn't just your average nosy neighbor. No, she was something else entirely. It all started innocently enough. I'd inherited my family's farm, 50 acres of rich soil that had been in our family for generations. The old barn still stood proud, though its red paint was fading. Corn stalks swayed in the breeze, and the orchard was heavy with apples come fall. It was my slice of heaven, a place where I could feel close to my roots and carry on my family's legacy. But Karen? She saw things differently. From the day she moved in next door, it was clear she had other ideas about how things should be run around here. At first, it was little things. Complaints about the rooster crowing too early or the smell of fertilizer drifting over to her manicured lawn. I tried to be a good neighbor, I really did. Brought over a basket of fresh vegetables as a welcome gift. She took one look at those homegrown tomatoes and asked if they were organic. When I said they weren't certified but grown without pesticides, she pursed her lips and said she'd pass. That should have been my first clue. Soon, Karen's complaints escalated. She'd call the sheriff about noise violations if I ran the combine after dark during harvest season. Started a petition to ban unsightly farm equipment from being visible from the road. At town meetings, she'd stand up and rant about how farms like mine were lowering property values in the area. But it wasn't just the complaining that got to me. No, what really set my teeth on edge was the way Karen watched. Always watching. I'd look up from mending a fence and see her peering through binoculars from her second-story window. Motion-activated floodlights would snap on if I ventured too close to the property line after dusk. Once, I caught her leaning over the fence, scribbling furiously in a little notebook as she eyed my crops. "Just admiring your tomatoes," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "They seem to be doing so well this year. What's your secret?" I muttered something about good soil and hard work, but inside, I was seething. This wasn't neighborly curiosity. This was surveillance. The threats started soon after. Little notes left in my mailbox, warning that my days were numbered if I didn't clean up my act. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night. A raspy voice telling me to watch my back. I installed security cameras, changed the locks, started sleeping with one eye open. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The day I caught Karen red-handed trespassing on my land was the day everything changed. And let me tell you folks, it's a day I'll never forget. Before we go into that fateful confrontation, I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a neighbor from hell? Someone who pushed the boundaries of what it means to be part of a community? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this tale of rural drama, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories that'll make your own neighbors seem like saints in comparison. Our story begins with the Smith family, proud owners of Sunnybrook Farm for 5 generations. John Smith, our protagonist, grew up learning the rhythms of farm life from his grandfather and parents. The 50-acre property has been a cornerstone of the local community for over a century, providing fresh produce and dairy to nearby towns. John's daily routine starts before dawn, tending to the animals and crops. His deep connection to the land is evident in every careful decision he makes to maintain the farm's legacy. The community has always appreciated Sunnybrook Farm's contributions, from hosting annual harvest festivals to donating produce to local food banks. Sunnybrook Farm boasts a diverse landscape. 20 acres of rotating crops, corn, soybeans, wheat. 10 acres of orchards, apples, pears, cherries. 15 acres of pasture for livestock, cows, sheep, chickens. 5 acres for the farmhouse, barn, and equipment storage. The farm plays a crucial role in the local ecosystem, providing habitat for native wildlife and maintaining soil health through sustainable practices. 3 years ago, Karen Matthews moved into the newly developed Oak Ridge Estates adjacent to Sunnybrook Farm. Initially, she seemed friendly, even complimenting the picturesque views of the farm from her back porch. As months passed, Karen's true colors emerged. She began lodging complaints about early morning rooster crows, the occasional waft of manure smell, unsightly farm equipment visible from her property, John attempted to address these concerns, explaining the realities of farm life, but Karen remained unsatisfied. Determined to improve the neighborhood, Karen spearheaded the creation of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. She lobbied aggressively to include Sunnybrook Farm within the HOA's jurisdiction, despite its pre-existing status and agricultural zoning. John found himself embroiled in a series of legal skirmishes as the HOA, led by Karen, attempted to impose their rules on Sunnybrook Farm. The farm's long-standing agricultural exemptions and zoning rights became a point of contention. Despite clear legal precedent supporting the farm's rights, Karen and the HOA persisted in their efforts to control Sunnybrook Farm's operations. As tensions reached a boiling point, one question loomed large. How far would Karen go to control a property that wasn't hers? The stage was set for a showdown between generations of agricultural tradition and the encroaching pressures of suburban development. As tensions escalated, Karen's behavior took a sinister turn. Late at night, when the farm was quiet, she would sneak onto my property through a gap in the fence. Security footage revealed her methodically inspecting my crops, jotting notes in her ever-present notebook, and occasionally helping herself to my hard-earned produce. Her petty thefts weren't limited to vegetables. Tools would go missing, and expensive equipment would mysteriously break. It was clear that Karen was not just trespassing but actively sabotaging my livelihood. Determined to catch her in the act, I invested in a state-of-the-art security system. Hidden cameras were strategically placed around the property, their lenses trained on key areas. The system was designed to send real-time alerts to my phone, ensuring I'd never miss a moment of Karen's illicit activities. One crisp autumn morning, my phone buzzed with an alert. Heart pounding, I watched the live feed as Karen slipped through the fence, basket in hand. She made her way to my prized heirloom tomato patch, carefully selecting the ripest fruits. As she filled her basket, her smug expression made my blood boil. Enough was enough. The next day, I reinforced the fence, closing off Karen's access point. I installed no trespassing signs at regular intervals, making it impossible for her to claim ignorance. The property line was now clearly defined and secured. Karen's reaction was swift and furious. She stormed up to my front door, face red with anger, demanding I remove the eyesore of a fence. When I calmly refused, explaining it was within my rights to secure my property, she whipped out her phone and dialed 911. Her voice rose to a shrill pitch as she accused me of running an illegal operation on my farm. She claimed I was growing illicit substances, polluting the groundwater, and violating numerous zoning laws. It was a barrage of baseless accusations, each more outrageous than the last. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up to my farm. The officers, looking somewhat skeptical, approached me for questioning. They explained they were required to investigate Karen's claims, no matter how improbable they seemed. As we walked the property, I calmly answered their questions, explaining my farming practices and showing them the relevant permits and certifications. The officers were professional, but seemed increasingly annoyed at what was clearly a waste of their time. With the police now involved in our neighborhood dispute, would justice finally be served? Or would Karen's false accusations somehow gain traction, threatening everything I'd worked so hard to build? As the police officers were wrapping up their inspection, I took a deep breath and said, "Officers, there's something you need to see." I led them to my office and pulled up the security footage on my computer. The crystal-clear video showed Karen sneaking onto my property, pilfering vegetables, and even tampering with equipment. The officers' expressions shifted from skepticism to disbelief as they watched. One of them turned to me and said, "Sir, why didn't you show us this earlier?" I explained that I wanted to give Karen a chance to come clean, but her false accusations left me no choice. Within minutes, the situation had completely reversed. The officers approached Karen, who was still waiting outside, her arms crossed and a smug look on her face. As they began to read her rights, her expression crumbled. "Karen Matthews, you're under arrest for trespassing, theft, and filing a false police report," the officer stated firmly. The charges were serious, each offense carrying potential fines and even jail time. As they led her to the police car, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't how I wanted things to end, but Karen had left me no choice. News travels fast in a small town. By the next day, word of Karen's arrest had spread like wildfire. To my surprise, Neighbors I'd barely spoken to before started showing up at the farm, offering words of support and even volunteering to help with chores. "We always knew something was off about her," one longtime resident told me. "But we never imagined it would go this far. We're just glad the truth came out." The fallout from Karen's actions was swift. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove her from her position. There was talk of potential lawsuits, not just from me, but from other neighbors who felt they'd been harassed or falsely accused by Karen over the years. As for me, I decided to press charges. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was necessary to send a message that this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated in our community. With the cloud of Karen's harassment lifted, I could finally focus on the future of Sunnybrook Farm. The outpouring of community support gave me new ideas for expansion. I started planning community garden plots, educational programs for local schools, and even a small farmer's market on the property. This farm has been in my family for generations. I told a group of neighbors who'd gathered to help plant a new orchard. But it's never felt more like a true part of the community than it does now. As the dust settled, I found myself reflecting on the importance of property rights and standing up to bullies. It would have been easier to give in to Karen's demands, to let her dictate how I ran my farm. But by standing firm and knowing my rights, I not only protected my livelihood, but also helped expose a threat to our entire community. As we look to the future, one question remains. How can we protect our communities from those who abuse power? It's a complex issue, but perhaps the answer lies in the very thing that helped me through this ordeal: a strong, supportive community that stands together against injustice. As we wrap up this incredible journey, I want to take a moment to speak directly to you, my viewers. This experience has taught me the vital importance of knowing your rights and standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. I encourage each of you to educate yourselves about local property laws and zoning regulations. Knowledge is power, and understanding your rights can be your best defense against unjust accusations or overreach. Support your local farms and farmers. We're not just growing food, we're preserving a way of life and maintaining important ecosystems. Visit your local farmers markets, join a CSA, or simply stop by a nearby farm to learn about their practices. Get involved in your community. Attend town meetings, join local committees, or volunteer for community projects. A strong, engaged community is the best defense against those who would abuse power for personal gain. Document everything. If you find yourself in a situation similar to mine, thorough documentation can make all the difference. Keep records, save correspondence, and don't be afraid to invest in security measures if necessary. As I stand here today, looking out over the fields of Sunnybrook Farm, I'm filled with a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the land that has sustained my family for generations, for the community that rallied around us in our time of need, and yes, even for the challenges we faced. This ordeal with Karen tested me in ways I never expected. There were moments when I considered giving up, when the constant harassment and legal battles seemed too much to bear. But through perseverance, documentation, and the support of my community, we not only overcame this challenge, but emerged stronger for it. Remember, injustice thrives in silence and isolation. By speaking up, standing firm, and supporting one another, we can create communities where everyone's rights are respected and where the Karens of the world can't gain a foothold. As we move forward, let's carry these lessons with us. Let's build communities based on mutual respect, understanding, and support. And let's never forget the power we have when we stand together against injustice. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story has resonated with you, please share it with others. Let's spread awareness and inspire more people to stand up for what's right. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.